If you've ever been dehumanized in front of strangers and told to be quiet, hit like and subscribe. I was only 17, but they treated me like a threat. It started with a bag of Skittles and a Snapple. I remember that because I was debating between lemon and peach when the chime over the corner store door rang behind me, and two cops stepped in like they were hunting something. I didn't even look at them at first. I was texting my mom to let her know I'd be home late from school. My name's Malik Jennings, I'm black, 17, on the debate team, and I just aced my AP US History midterm the day before. I'm tall, 6 foot by the time I was 15, but soft-spoken, always respectful. None of that mattered when the taller cop pointed at me and barked, "Hey, you." Hands where I can see them. I froze. I was wearing my school hoodie, backpack still slung over one shoulder, and my heart started hammering. The store owner, Mr. Feldman, a guy who always called me Professor when I came in, blinked at the officers in confusion and said, "What's going on?" But they weren't listening. The shorter cop grabbed my wrist hard enough to make me drop my phone, and the taller one yanked my arms behind my back before I could say anything. "You fit the description," they snapped, ignoring my pleas and the fact that I hadn't even left the aisle. Apparently, someone had reported a tall black male in a hoodie who shoplifted from a nearby bodega. That was all it took for them to shove me out the store with zip ties around my wrist like I was a criminal. No one stopped them, not the bystanders, not the cashier who looked like he wanted to disappear into the cigarette rack. My knees scraped the pavement as they forced me down next to the squad car, and I heard someone mutter, "They always do this," but no one intervened. It wasn't until one of the cops picked up my phone and saw the lock screen, me, and my mom at last year's national speech finals, that something shifted. He squinted, maybe recognized me, maybe not, but by then I was already humiliated, already cuffed. I begged them to call my mom. "Please, she's a lawyer. She'll explain," but they laughed. "A lawyer, huh?" "Yeah, and I'm the president." They put me in the back of the cruiser like garbage to be taken out, my forehead pressed against the window, hot tears sliding down my cheek. They didn't read me my rights. They didn't ask questions. They didn't care that I'd been in the store less than 5 minutes. When we pulled into the precinct, the air felt thinner, like I couldn't breathe right. They put me in a holding cell with a man who was clearly high and mumbling nonsense, and I tried not to cry. I kept thinking about my mom's face, how furious and terrified she would be. And I was right. Because when the desk sergeant finally answered her call, everything changed. Not all at once, but enough to start something they never saw coming. My mom always said her voice was her sharpest weapon, and when she used it that day, it cut through the precinct like a siren. I didn't know exactly what happened at first. One minute I was sitting in that freezing holding cell trying not to flinch every time the man next to me screamed at the wall, and the next, the door burst open and a young officer rushed in with a look like he'd just found out the building was on fire. "Get him out of there." He snapped at someone behind him, keys jangling as he fumbled with the lock. I stumbled out, wrists still zip-tied, legs numb from sitting so long on the concrete. The officer wouldn't meet my eyes. We're clearing this up now," he mumbled. But I already knew my mother had gotten to them. When I stepped into the hallway, there she was, standing 5'4" in a trench coat and heels, one hand gripping her cell, the other pointed straight at the chief of police like she was cross-examining him in court. "You held my minor son without charges, without reading him his rights, and without calling his emergency contact," she was saying, voice low and lethal. "I'm recording this conversation. So are 3 of my colleagues at the ACLU. Do you want to try lying to me again?" She didn't even look at me at first. That's how focused she was. When she finally saw me, her face crumpled for half a second, just long enough for me to know she'd been scared out of her mind, but then it hardened again. "Get those off him," she said, and a senior officer rushed to cut the zip ties. My wrists were raw and swollen. She reached for me, checked my arms, my face, like she was cataloging damage. "Are you okay? Did they hurt you?" I couldn't speak. I just nodded and tried to swallow the lump in my throat. The police chief started rambling about a miscommunication and a vague description, but Mom shut him down instantly. "You detained my son for existing while black in a hoodie, and you're going to answer for it." She didn't shout. She didn't have to. She told them she wanted every second of the arrest on body cam, every name of every officer involved, and she would be filing a formal complaint with the City Civilian Review Board and the Department of Justice. And here's the thing, my mom wasn't just a lawyer. She was known. Civil rights litigator. Guest lecturer at Howard. Had gone viral once for dismantling a state prosecutor on live TV. When she posted about what happened to me, her kid who still left his cereal bowl in the sink, Twitter lit up like wildfire. By nightfall, the story was trending. #Justice for Malik. My debate team retweeted it. My principal sent an email. Local reporters started calling. And somewhere between CNN and MSNBC, the precinct put out a limp apology claiming procedural error and officer discretion, which only made it worse. A clip from a bodega security camera came out. Mr. Feldman, bless his heart, gave it to a journalist. It showed me browsing quietly. No signs of theft. No crime. Just me standing there in my hoodie, looking like any other high school kid after class. The video went viral. By the next morning, students at my school staged a walkout. Teachers joined. The mayor tweeted something hollow about accountability. But real change started when my mom organized a forum at the community center that weekend. Hundreds showed up. Other parents spoke. Other kids shared stories that sounded way too much like mine. Cuffed at 15 for jaywalking, shoved against lockers by school security, always fitting the description. It wasn't just about me anymore. My mom said, "This is systemic. And we're done whispering about it." And the room erupted. What started as a mistake, an arrest they thought they could sweep away, had become a movement. Something was building. Something they couldn't control. The weight of what had happened didn't fully hit me until a week later, when I was sitting in front of a crowd of hundreds at a town hall meeting, trying to explain how it felt to have your body treated like a crime. At first, I thought it was just going to be one of those symbolic things. Speak your truth, let it fade. But the momentum didn't slow. If anything, it built with a kind of quiet fury. My mom was everywhere, interviewed on NPR, quoted in the Times, even invited to speak at the state capitol. But what made the biggest difference were the everyday people who came forward with stories that mirrored mine almost exactly. A 12-year-old named Terrence had been slammed to the ground by school security for reaching into his backpack too fast. A high school valedictorian named Nudja had been pulled over 5 times in the same week for fitting a profile as she drove to her summer internship. There was an entire undercurrent of rage and grief that had been ignored for so long. It exploded when given the slightest room to breathe. People started showing up in city council chambers with signs that read, "My skin is not probable cause." Students walked out of schools in coordinated silence, carrying books and handcuffs as props. The mayor called my mother personally. She let it go to voicemail. "We don't need your condolences," she said during a speech at a packed vigil downtown. "We need policies. We need prosecutions. We need permanent change." And the room roared. The officers who arrested me were finally identified by name. Turns out, one had been the subject of 6 previous complaints, all quietly closed with no action. That changed. Under pressure from civil rights groups and public scrutiny, the city placed both officers on unpaid leave pending investigation. The DA opened a formal inquiry. Then the school board joined in, creating a joint task force to reevaluate all school-to-prison pipeline practices. It was the first time anyone had taken a real look at how young black boys like me could go from honor roll to handcuffs just by existing in the wrong place. Or any place. But the most powerful moment didn't come from a politician or an article. It came when Mr. Feldman, the store owner who'd seen it happen, showed up at a youth justice panel and spoke with tears in his eyes. I saw that boy grow up. He came in here with science fair ribbons, with debate team flyers. I didn't stop it. I froze. I'll regret that forever. And for the first time, I saw what it meant to be an ally. Not just sympathy, but truth. And truth has power. The precinct tried to quietly settle with my family. Offer us hush money wrapped in goodwill. My mom declined it. Justice, she said, doesn't come with a check. Instead, she worked with other parents to fund a legal clinic for youth facing wrongful charges. We called it the Malik Project. I still can't say that without choking up. And me? I stopped shrinking. I stopped apologizing for how much space I take up in the world. I finished the school year with straight A's, gave the graduation speech in front of thousands, and applied to college with an essay titled, "What I Learned in a Holding Cell." I got into Columbia. Full ride. I still remember sitting on the steps outside our building, letter trembling in my hands, as my mom wrapped her arms around me and whispered, "They tried to erase you. Instead, you became a movement." And she was right. What they meant to break me became the reason I stood taller. What they tried to bury me under turned out to be soil. And I grew. I grew, and the world noticed. And now, when I walk past a cop car, I don't flinch. I remember. I remember everything. And I keep going. Louder, brighter, unstoppable. Because I'm not a threat. I'm a future they can't handcuff. Not anymore.